So you can turn your mic, off, you can turn your camera off if you don't want to ever have your video seen. We do record these so that people who can't make it, we know the life of a small business owner is incredibly busy and kind of random, and you do everything all the time. You can't always drop everything to attend something. So record it so people can access it later if they couldn't come today, or if they see something really valuable and they would like to share it with a fellow business owner, a family member, friend, something like that, that they can do that as well. There is a chat function on Zoom. I think everyone probably at this point in the pandemic is super familiar with Zoom, but there is a chat function at the bottom of the screen. You can chat to the whole group if you'd like to ask questions that way. As she's doing her presentation, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. If you have a question that you would like to ask privately, if it has, your personal financial information in it, or you're embarrassed about it, or for whatever reason, you're welcome to chat me privately. You can choose, instead of everyone, you can choose just my name from that drop-down list, and I'll ask the question out loud for you. Or if you're uncomfortable having it show up in the chat, you're welcome to email me directly. And my email address is right there. Okay, so I am Dixie Elizabeth Patrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Austin Independent Business Alliance. We're a 501c6 organization here in Austin, founded in 2003, so we've been doing this for a really long time. I became Executive Director in April of this year, which is an interesting time to be working in local business now that we're in the middle of a pandemic. My email address is here. I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions about what we do, if you have any questions about something that's going on with your business, how to engage with us, how to engage with other local business owners, any of that. I'm your girl, reach out to me. There's my contact information. And we are thrilled today to have Harriet Sedgwick with us. She's the Assistant Director for Programs at the Texas Grants Resource Center, which is an amazing place that I did not know existed pre-pandemic. So I'm sure Harriet has been getting a lot of additional attention probably on her in this period of time, but we are thrilled to have her. We're so glad that she could join us. So what we're going to do this morning is I'm going to talk just a little bit about the grants for small business that have happened and that we're kind of seeing come up. And then Harriet is going to run us through best practices for grant writing. So she helps people write grants of all kinds from all walks of life all the time. It's not usual that a for-profit business would be eligible for a grant. It's usually for nonprofits or other kind of entities. But we find ourselves in a new world now. And one of the ways that government, city, state, local government, and other kind of larger organizations are choosing to support small and local businesses is through grant programs. So the impetus of this, this training session is the city of Austin and Travis County both had small business grant relief programs. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with them. Maybe you applied for them. Hopefully some of you received funding through them. So what that was is that was the city taking CARES Act funding and trying to find a way to distribute it. Again, the city is probably not used to a city department that's not used to doing grants either. And what we ended up with was a whole bunch of small businesses who were applying for these grants who had zero knowledge of what it looks like to apply for a grant. Like, how do you even basically is the thing. So we have been picking apart the feedback that we got. We were very involved in helping people get through that application process. We wanted as many small businesses and locally owned businesses to apply for those grants as possible. It was there for them. So through that process, we identified some kind of weak points in small local business ownership, just like places where we don't really know. So we've done a couple of seminars. The last one that we did was bookkeeping practices. We found that there were a lot of people who didn't know what a balance sheet was, for example, or had never used one, or were unfamiliar with profit and loss or how to kind of show loss over time. So we did a bookkeeping webinar with a local CPA. She was fantastic. We have a lot of information that is also posted if you'd like to go back and look at it. I'll make sure I link to it when I email everyone. I'm going to make myself a note so I don't forget that when I email everyone after this. So this is to familiarize small business owners with the process of applying for grants and receiving them. We're going to talk about kind of the the words that people use when we talk about grants and some of the special things that we do. Harriet has a whole presentation on that. Before we dive into that, let's talk just a little bit about where we stand right now. So there was this Austin Small Business Relief Grant Program that closed. The money was spent. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I'll link a blog to it so you can see kind of who got the money. The city of Austin did a great job of breaking it all down for us after it was over. Who got the money, from what neighborhood they were, where their business was, how many employees they had, what their revenues were. That it's all broken down so you can see. And where we stand now is we have a new SAVES resolution, a series of SAVES funding, which is Save Austin's Vital Economic Sectors, is what that stands for. Remember that. And it looked in the beginning that it was also going to go kind of the same grant route that the initial thing did, that the initial round of funding did. It now looks like maybe it's going to go a little bit of a different route. We will do, I wish that I had enough detail to go ahead and do a presentation on that. We did include a little blurb about what's happening in our newsletter. So what we think that they're going to do with these SAVES fund is, instead of grants, which were reimbursement grants last time, we think they're going to use it for rent help. So that they will connect a landlord and a small business owner and figure out how to do property tax abatements in exchange for more favorable leases or rent forgiveness or something like that. So like I said, the details have not been released yet. That program was supposed to be discussed on November 12th at the city council meeting, and it was postponed. So the next council meeting is December 3rd. I have heard that it's on the agenda. The agenda is not out yet, but I've heard that it's on the agenda for the 3rd. So hopefully we'll have a lot more answers of what is kind of the next round of help that's coming. It's also important to note that the SAVES funding is specifically for a couple of sectors. So it's not for everyone. It is for music venues, it's for bars and restaurants, and it's for childcare, are the 3 that are named in it. I will say, not to get anyone's hopes up, but in the draft information that's coming out about it, which is linked in that newsletter that I mentioned, and also on a blog on our website, in the draft information that's coming out, it mentions the economic sectors directly surrounding some of those things. So the small and retail businesses that are around bars and restaurants, and some of the other tourist activities we're thinking are maybe going to be included in that. So, okay, so enough of my monologue. I am going to real quick make Harriet a host so that she can share her screen. And yes. Awesome. So she's got it there. So as I mentioned, Harriet is with the Texas Grants Resource Center, and she's going to take it away from here. Quick reminder, we are recording. She's going to share her screen. Use that chat box if you have questions along the way, or my email address, dixie@AIBA if you want to go ahead and throw a question in, we can get it answered. Harriet, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Dixie and everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Great. So I will go ahead and share my screen. I've got a few slides to share with y'all, but just to set some context, as Dixie said, I'm with the Texas Grants Resource Center, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but we are housed within the University of Texas. And I'm happy to join y'all today to talk about just how to find grants and just kind of how to adjust your thinking around seeking that type of money, since as I know and as I understand, it's not really the main focus for a business, for a for-profit business, to be looking for grant money. So most of the folks that I work with and most of the community that the TGRC interacts with is in the nonprofit space here in Austin and Central Texas. And so most of the income that a nonprofit is going to bring in to support their mission and to support their work is going to come from grants and donors, right? So that's kind of the framing for this information. But as y'all have noted, there are kind of more grant opportunities coming available, especially during COVID relief times. And so it will be helpful to just understand kind of what to look for and how to think about framing your work and framing your need in a way that is going to be appealing to funders. And, you know, understanding that in this case, funders are mostly going to be the city or a government entity of some sort that is providing these opportunities. But they're still going to have specific things that they want to hear and that they want to understand that are going to make you more competitive, since grant seeking is a competitive process. So a little more context just about where we sit in the world. The TGRC, Texas Grants Resource Center, is, as I said, a part of University of Texas. We are part of the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement. And within that unit, we, the Center for Community Engagement, works to be kind of the front porch of the university to the Austin community, with the acknowledgement that UT has not always been the best neighbor, especially to East Austin and to the more economically disadvantaged parts of town. And so we know that there's been a lot of trust broken down between UT and the community. And so the Center for Community Engagement is really working to kind of rebuild that trust, or build that trust in the first place. And so part of that goal is the TGRC working with community members who are seeking funds. And so that can look many different ways. We are not a funder ourselves. We do not have money or grants that we give out, but we're a connector. So we're able to say, okay, you're a small business and you're looking to, you know, cover rent for the rest of the year or for this month. Let me help you find some resources to do that. Or you're a nonprofit and you're looking to fundraise. Let me find some resources to help you do that. We also work with students, of course, because we're part of the academic institution, who are looking for scholarship funding or academic funding. So we're kind of here to point folks in the right direction. We're also a part of an organization called Candid, which is a nationwide nonprofit based in New York City that provides just data and information on philanthropy, on giving, around the country in a variety of different ways. And so we're one of their funding information network locations. So again, this is the information and support provided is a little more nonprofit focused, but there are going to be there's going to be support at a funding information network location pretty much anywhere in the US for anyone who's looking for funding of any kind. So if your work or life takes you away from Austin and you're looking for you know, financial support or information or training, you can find it through a funding information network location. I see a question before we dive in. Hi, Mia. Are there grants that support women in the STEM industry? I'm sure there are, yes. I'm going to answer all these questions with the caveat that grants for for-profit businesses are just in general more difficult to find. But I know that there is a big interest in supporting STEM and supporting women in STEM. And there, I'm sure, are opportunities, and especially companies that would want to sponsor that type of a project, that type of a business. Because yes, as you say, there are very, very, very few women CEOs in STEM. And so I know that there are companies focused on changing that and addressing that. So we can talk about that offline if you want. I know Dixie provided my email address, and I will provide it again at the end. So please feel free to reach out. Okay, so when we're talking about finding grants and kind of framing how you look for grants, there's some important things to keep in mind. And this applies to if you're doing kind of a more broad grant search, if you're looking for a bunch of different options, as well as if you're just responding to, you know, these opportunities that, for example, the city of Austin is putting out and just kind of applying to one or two potential funders. There's still some things that you'll want to think about as you're looking at your company and looking at your needs that will help you be more successful in applying. So the first thing to think about is that you obviously can't survive just on grants. So if you are, you know, facing a budget shortfall and you are looking for different kind of creative ways to address that, make sure that you're not just thinking about the city, right? You're not just thinking about where about kind of these institutional structures that are giving funds. So this chart is for nonprofit organizations in the past year, but it's mostly just to illustrate that there are more than one ways to skin a cat. Basically, there are more than one way that you can reach out and find funding. So you've got these grant funds that come available, but also outside of the income that you bring in through your business, are you crowdfunding, right? Are you starting a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe to kind of make up that deficit? Are you reaching out to your network and saying, could we pull together some donations, or could we pull together some funds, or could we do, an event or something that will bring in some more money to help us with the shortfall? So like, while it is fantastic and so appreciated, I'm sure, by everybody that the city is helping out, make sure you're exploring all of your options as you're looking for ways to bring in these extra funds. So when you are looking for grant funding, it's important to remember that not all foundations or not all type of funders are alike, and the type of funder that you're working with is going to determine the way that you approach them. So when we're talking about foundations, which again are maybe a little less on topic for businesses, but also can be interested in helping support a small business, and especially kind of a small business collective. So there are three types of main private foundations. So they're independent or family foundations, so that money is coming from one source. There are company-sponsored foundations, which the money is coming from a company, but it's not coming directly from the company. It's been restructured into a corporate foundation format. And then there are operating foundations, which only fund themselves, right? So they don't give money to anybody. So we probably won't talk about them anymore. And then outside of private foundations, there are direct corporate giving programs, right? So when a big corporation gives either money or in-kind donations to support a business or a cause that they think is important. There are also grant-making public charities, which usually only work with nonprofits, and then of course government entities, which we are most focused on today. And so again, the type of grant maker is going to determine what you say to them and what they want from you. So foundations in particular, especially those private foundations, they have to give money away. So when you're talking with them, you're not really trying to convince them to like part with their hard-earned cash, right? And the same thing with the city, really. They already have this money set aside for this purpose, right? It's gonna go somewhere and it's gonna go to the small business community. You just need to create the case, build the case that it should come to you and not somebody else, right? So it's really about understanding the motivations that these funders have and then meeting those motivations. So a private foundation has a philanthropic goal and interest that it wants to support. So if if your business is more kind of mission focused, or if you have kind of your own values that you want to meet and things like that, then you can use that to appeal to a private foundation and say like, listen, we're trying to accomplish the same things, let's work together. So a corporation, a big corporation like the Dells or Bank of Americas of the world, they're going to have branding and visibility goals that they want to accomplish. And so you'll want to be able to work with them to explain, how are they going to get visibility in the community for helping you with your goals? Can they, if you're trying to fundraise for an event and trying to get folks to come on as sponsors, where is their logo going to be on the welcome sign? Or, how are you going to acknowledge that Coca-Cola has sponsored your event, right? Are you going to have t-shirts that you put their brand on the back of? Like, what's that going to look like? They're going to want to understand that as you're talking about asking for money in the first place. And then grant-making public charities, which the example here in Austin is the Austin Community Foundation. They want to make an impact on the community, right? So they're going to be very regionally focused. But again, they mostly work with nonprofit organizations. So we can it's good to know that they exist and they're a really fantastic organization, but I think maybe a little less applicable for us today. But as you're writing your grants, right, as you're trying to go through the process of actually writing down, what you do and why your work merits support, and why it's kind of, important to keep your budget in the red and everything working, or excuse me, in the black and everything working. It's not just about what you need, it's also about what the funder wants to hear. So it's very easy to get into a grant application and kind of just say like, listen, we're going to go under if we don't get this funding. And while that is true, and that is absolutely valid, that's, you know, the funder knows that you need the money because you're applying. So the question is why, and why are you the best fit for what they're trying to accomplish? And the other question that they're trying to answer through the application process is they're trying to look at your credibility and look at your, you know, are you going to be a responsible user of the funds that you're asking for? So credibility looks a few different ways, right? The first is, are you legally structured to receive the funds, right? So in an application process, there's going to be, you know, a list of specific types of legal entities that these funds are available for. You know, are you an LLC? Are you a B Corp? Are you what type of business are you? And just make sure that that type of business meets the type that the funder is looking to give to, right? So any funder, whether it's the city or a private funder or anything, they have a legal structure too, right? They have specific types of legal entities that they are allowed to give their money to. And so if you don't meet that first bar, then they're not going to be able to give you money. So just like read the details, right? Read the fine print, make sure you understand who they're supposed to give to, and make sure that you fit that mold. So is your work compatible with the funder's focus area, right? So some funders, like the City of Austin, for example, they're going to have very specific parameters for like what they're trying to accomplish. So are they trying to support you know, food and beverage industry? Are they trying to support the music industry? Are they trying to support just any small business of, you know, under X budget amount or under X employee count? What is their focus area? And again, do you fit in with their focus area? And it's okay if you don't, right? If for whatever reason, they're only supporting food and beverage and your retail or whatever the case may be, that's okay. You just got to find someone else, right? Just kind of pivot and find another funder that's working with your focus area. So that's another thing that you'll want to check. Another thing that they're going to want to understand is, do you have strong leadership, right? So this is a question about who is making the decisions about where the money goes, right? So if they give you money that is supposed to cover your rent for the next 2 to 3 months, who is receiving that money and making the decision about like how it gets paid, you know, how it gets given out to pay rent? And do they have competency in that, right? Do they have a history of using money correctly? Do they have business acumen? You know, is there some example or proof that, you know, they know what they're doing? And that may be you, that may be someone on your staff. I don't, you know, it depends on the structure, but you're just going to have to answer the question of, you know, who is receiving the money and how do they know what to do with it? And then do you have a strong organizational and financial infrastructure? So they're going to want to, you know, look at your books, right? They're going to want to understand, again, if you have a history of using money correctly, if everything checks out on your financial side, and that you, again, have a history of and a demonstrated history of using the money in a way that you say you're going to, and in a way that keeps your business moving forward. And it seems pretty, you know, straightforward, like, well, yes, of course, I need to pay rent to keep my business open. Like, this is pretty easy, but folks, you know, can be shady and do things that they're not supposed to with money that they receive, and the city doesn't want to be in that situation. So they want to check and make sure that you know what you're doing and that you're going to use the money correctly. And that will be baked into the questions that they ask, right? So they're going to ask, like, you know, who is on your staff, who is on your leadership team, you know, what does your profit and loss statement look like for the past year? You know, they're going to ask these questions that help them understand where you're at financially and where you're at logistically and how you're going to receive the funds and know what to do with them. It's not just going to be like, do you know what you're doing, right? There will be questions that they ask that outline your understanding of your business and your understanding of your needs. So the next thing to think about is just to do your homework first. You never want to approach any type of funder, whether it's, for your for-profit business, whether you do start a nonprofit, whether you're trying, any way you're approaching a funder, without understanding who they are, what they want, and how you fit in with their goals, right? So just make sure you've read every detail of this, whenever the city of Austin does release the next request for proposals, make sure you read all of it and you know who you're talking to and why, and you know that you fit in with their goals. So on that kind of theme, the one size fits all approach doesn't really work, right? So if you are applying to many different funders, if the city of Austin and also Travis County and also the state of Texas all open up, calls for proposals and are all trying to help small businesses, make sure that you're crafting each proposal separately and you're speaking to each funder separately, because they're all going to have slightly different goals and slightly different things that they're asking for from you. So don't send everybody the same cover letter, right? Don't put the same verbiage. So the way that these grants work usually is there's kind of an online portal that you log into, and there are a series of questions and you type in your answers, or, more ideally, you copy the questions into a Word document, type out your answers, copy them back in. So you don't submit anything wrong that you haven't looked at first. But either way, the questions and the format are going to look very similar between different funders, even if it's between, city and state, or if it's between city and private funder, whatever the case may be. The questions are going to be similar, but that doesn't mean the answers should be the same, because this is a small world and these folks talk to each other, and they're going to be saying, oh, did you see the proposal from that, group? Yeah, I got the same thing. And then it looks like you didn't do your homework and you're not really putting in the work, right? It's kind of a litmus test and it feels a little unfortunate, but it's true. Just make sure that you're speaking directly to each funder and that you're kind of mentioning things about them so that they know you're talking to them. And this all can be, written into the application as you're putting it together. So to get the grant, find the right match, right? So not only do you want to find a funder that is, supporting your work, specifically, either your sector or whatever it is that you focus on, but also make sure that they fund in Austin, right? Make sure that they're not working to support San Antonio or Dallas or some other part of the state. Make sure that they fund, again, your type of work, and that they provide the type of support that you need. If you need rent assistance and a grant comes available that is only helping with operating, with like staff payments or with something besides rent, then that's not going to help you, right? So you need to find something that matches not only the type of work that you do, but also the type of money that you need, because grants can be very specific and they'll say like, we're only supporting rent, or we're only supporting your staff, or we're only supporting inventory, purchases, or whatever the case may be. So make sure that you read that carefully and you're not applying for money that you can't actually use. So the next thing is to ask for the right amount, right? So kind of counterintuitive, because the right amount is how much you need to you. You know what you need, and that's how much you want to ask for. However, these grants will often have either an amount that they're going to give or a history or a pattern of amounts that they often give. So, the city of Austin, I forget what the last round of small business grants was, if there was like a dollar amount that they were going to give to each winner. But usually they will say like, we are giving $25,000 to each winner of this grant, or they'll say, we have $100,000 or $1 million total that we are investing in the small business community, and we're going to give grants between $5,000 and $50,000 or something. There will be parameters. So you need to make sure that your ask matches those parameters, even if that doesn't fill in your entire shortfall or it doesn't meet your needs. It's important to ask for the amount that they say they're going to give. Because if you don't, it looks like you didn't do your homework, right? It looks like you don't know who you're talking to, and they're less likely to pay attention to your proposal or give you any right? So make sure that you understand how much money these folks usually give, or what the parameters are for this particular request for proposals, and ask for that. And if it's completely wide open and there aren't any parameters, then you'll want to try and like find somebody on the team that is giving these grants and talk to them and ask them, you know, how much should I ask for? Here's our situation. Here's, you know, what we need, but what do you think? So the next thing to think about is, while you don't need to know anybody, you don't need to know someone at the city to get the grant. Helps, right? Or you don't need to know somebody at the funding institution, but if you do know somebody and you can talk to them and say, hey, I would love to apply for this, what do you think? That's going to help you, right? Everything is networking in this world. So just check your networks, right? If the city does reopen a grant for small business and you want to apply for it and it looks like it's going to fit your needs, who do you know at the whatever, at either the Office of Small Businesses or whatever office within the city of Austin that is going to administer the grant? Is there anybody that you know who works there, or that you know who works in that area, that you can reach out to and just talk to? And, you know, it's not like, hey, can you give me a leg up? It's just, hey, I'm planning on applying for this. I would love to run it past you, or run it past somebody who's working on this project, you know. Can you help me out? That's a completely reasonable conversation to have, right? I saw there was a question in the chat. I've just got one more thing and then we'll get to questions. And then the last thing to think about, which is very related, is that the proposal is usually not the first thing a foundation wants. Same for any other type of funder, right? So there's obviously going to be a very clear and strict proposal process where there are questions they're going to want you to answer. There may be an interview round, like there will be, and we can walk through what those different steps might look like. But before all of that, again, find someone to talk to. Even if you don't know anybody who works for the city of Austin in the office that is administering whatever these funds are, you can find someone and try to reach out. And they may never get back to you, right? I'm sure these folks are going to be real busy, right? Trying to get this money out to the community. But it's worth a try. It's worth sending an email or making a phone call to, you know, a person, not just like info at or general, you know, email address for this office at the city. But find somebody who works there. Their email addresses and phone numbers are all on the city website. And just have a quick call. See if they're willing to take your call and say, I'm so interested, so, you know, excited about this grant opportunity. Here's my situation and I would love to apply. Do you think that makes sense for me to apply for this money? And they may be able to give you some guidance, right? They may be able to say like, oh yes, that fits exactly in what we're looking for. You know, make sure you get your proposal in on time. Or they may say, you know, that's really not in the parameters of what we're looking to fund this time. And then you don't have to waste your time applying, right? So either way, if they will talk to you, it's going to be a helpful conversation. Either they're going to say, you know, yes, sounds great, or they're going to say, no, doesn't sound great, but that's still helpful information, right? Because it saves you all the time and effort of applying, and you can focus your efforts elsewhere to try and raise those funds that you need. So those are kind of my top line tips and ideas as far as looking for grants and starting the proposal process. And especially, of course, around the city. This is how you get in touch with me. I would disregard that phone number since it is at a phone that I'm currently not near. But my email address is certainly a good way to reach me if you have any questions or want to kind of continue the conversation. Also, feel free. I think we've just got time for Q&A here. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that come up. I see we have one from Sonia. Excuse me, is there a database site? Okay, that's a great question. So she asked if there is a database or a site that shows a list of grants available. So yes and no. Yeah, so Mia, indeed, there is a database for nonprofits, which is publicly available. So for businesses specifically, there is a database that I have access to that y'all can request a search from. So here, I will continue sharing my screen, but just show you where to request that search. So basically there are a few different places. It's a little more complicated for businesses since again, it is much less likely that for-profit businesses receive grant funding at all, especially from private foundations and things like that. But there is a grants to individuals database that I can run searches through, and then send you results and kind of work with you in that way. It's usually publicly available when we are open. You could come to our physical location and use it, but we're not. So, so I can work with y'all to help with that.
That's a fantastic resource.
Yeah. So if you go to our website, which is texasgrc.org, and I'll just kind of walk you through it because I know we've got a little bit of time and I think it'll be helpful. If you come down to
I'm still seeing your PowerPoint screen.
Oh, well, how about that? Sorry. Let's try desktop, shall we? How's that?
Yes, that's great.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, so this is our website, texasgrc.org. This is our building. We're actually moving though, so this building won't be relevant soon. But if you come down to the Grant Search Concierge Service, come down to this link. If you click on it, it'll just bring you to a quick Google form that you'll fill out. And you'll want to specify, I'll just scroll down real quick here, that you are looking for the Grants to Individuals online database. And so this is for non-501c3 projects. So that includes for-profit businesses. And then what that will bring me to do, or someone on my staff to do, is to look through that database for funding opportunities that might apply to your business. And so there are a bunch of different filters and ways that we can refine that search to tell it to only bring us results that are interested in giving to businesses. And then I can send you whatever results I'm able to find. So and so that's kind of the main hub of that, the like main database that is available. And from there, you'll kind of want to delve into, oh, for sure. Okay, so it's a big, confusing looking link because it's a Google Doc or a Google form, but this is the form that you'd want to fill out to request a search. And then the website is here, texasgrc.org.
For everyone who doesn't grab that, we always send an email after events with the link to the recording, and I'll make sure to link those things in there too. So if you don't grab it from the chat or you lose it or whatever, you'll get an email. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Dixie. So and then besides that, it comes down to Google searches, right? So keeping a close eye on the city of Austin on their small business page to see when they open things up. I don't know if there's a way to set up alerts for when City of Austin kind of releases new funds, but you can set up a Google alert for that. And then, so past that, it's just kind of on you to like scan through like City of Austin, State of Texas, grants.gov is the federal funding database. So federal funds can be a headache for nonprofits and for-profit businesses alike. But you can come to grants.gov and look through their grant opportunities database as well for any small business focused federal funding that might be coming through. So, which I believe there should be given these times.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are also, there have been in the past and will certainly be in the future. Thank you, Hannah. It's nice to see you. In the future, it will be grants from large organizations that maybe aren't necessarily money, though some of them are money. I know that Facebook did a huge grant program where it's like, we have a little bit of money to give away to small businesses, and we're also going to give you all of this advertising so you can do whatever, or so other things like that. YouTube had another one that we're going to show you how to pivot your business to be more online in the time where you can't have customers come in the door. So there's unfortunately there's not a database that searches those kind of in-kind grants, and they're also one thing I wanted to recognize before we started, and I kind of breezed right past this, is just to recognize that we are in a global pandemic And we're also in an economic crisis for small business, for many, many small businesses. And the solution will come when life can go back to normal, right? That is the ultimate, how do we get back to where we were before, is we have to get back to where we were before. So this is about, supporting you on your way to there. I wanted to add just a couple of things to some of the things that Harriet said, as her points relate directly to the city funding that we looked at in this over the summer, and then that we kind of expect to replicate that in other ways kind of going forward in the world. She mentioned that the grants are not about how much you need, right? And the reimbursement grant that we had, see if I can highlight myself here. There we go. So the last grant that we had from the city was a reimbursement grant. So it wasn't looking forward. It wasn't just handing you money that you could do whatever you wanted. It was like, how much money did you spend on this, and this in the last 4 months? And we're going to pay you back for that. So you can have a little cash in your bank account to go forward. All of that, when they were looking for those things, they're looking at how you're doing. So specifically to the kind of economic crisis that we're in, when they're looking at your application for your grant, they don't want to be the sole provider for you, and they don't want to throw money away, right? So there's this kind of sweet spot that you're trying to hit in terms of your need as a business, where you have to say, I am viable, and here's my plan for going forward. Here's how I'm gonna make it, and I need this small bit of help to get me from point A to point B. But from there, I can take it. If you go in and you're like, everything is terrible, like if I'm gonna, I have zero, I have no money, then the person on the other end of the line, the organization that's looking through these grants, is being asked to make sure that they're spending the money well, right? So as you think about how you're presenting yourself, in that you want to make sure that your presentation is hitting that sweet spot, even if it feels like the sky is falling around you. Don't maybe say that in your application. Don't say, I'm going to go out of business tomorrow if you don't give me any money, because they don't want to have to give you money next month and the next month and the next month. So I just wanted to take that and kind of tie it back into the specific grant funding. So Harriet, I so appreciate you coming. It looks like, let me see if we have another question, or if that's so here's one from Kay, it looks like. Do you have to be in the City of Austin limits to apply for the grant from the City of Austin business, or in the greater Austin area to be able to apply? So the grant for the City of Austin grant program that we're referencing, the Small Business Relief Grant Program, that ended in July. So it hasn't been brought back yet, but we are expecting some additional help, either from the city, from the state, or from the federal government, to come to small businesses. That particular one, there were, just to talk about the past one so that we can assume that the future ones may be similar. In the past one, the CARES Act funding came, and it came to the City of Austin. So the City of Austin administered a program that was only for people within city council districts. So your business had to be in one of the city council districts, and they were very strict about it. I had a couple of people who I helped with the application process who were literally across the street from where the district line was, and were not able to apply because they were across the street. So there was no switching that around. The other thing that was a little bit unique about Travis County and the City of Austin, Travis County also received funds. Lots of places that are maybe not as large metropolitan areas, the county funds applied to everyone that was in the county. In Travis County, the Travis County funds, in particular, the grant program that they ran, excluded anyone within the Austin city limits. So they knew that Austin also got a pocket of money to spend, and because of that, they reserved the Travis County funds for people who were in the county but not in the city. Which was, and so the two programs kind of ran concurrently, but the county program was not maybe as, it was a little bit harder to find. So that's a really complicated answer, Kay, to a simple question. For anything that's coming from the city, I think you should expect that you have to be in a council district. There's an easy map that you can find on the city's website to see which district that you're in, and whether you're in a council district. Or I know we have a couple of members who are outside of those boundaries, and it is very frustrating to have a business address right outside the city, even though all of the business that you do is within the city. So I don't see any other questions. Oh, look. So the grant for approval is not based on financial statements. So let me answer that from the city. Let me read the question out loud so that everyone can hear it. So the grant application approval is not based on financial statements, parentheses, you can be healthy financially, but you are getting a grant to satisfy the goal or purpose of the foundation. So for the purpose of the funding that we've seen, the relief funding that we've seen, it's specifically, they're asking you to demonstrate a loss. So last year I had X revenue, this year I have this amount of revenue. It's a loss of 20% or 30% or 90% or whatever it is. And because of that, I'm requesting help. The last program also asked again for receipts that they could reimburse. So it asked for two things: show us that you're experiencing a loss and show us what money you spent so we can reimburse you for those things. In terms of demonstrating loss, that's a big one to think about. So in the normal grant world, they're not going to want you to be demonstrating loss. But in receiving funding for this economic crisis, go look at your books now and say, if somebody asks me, how much loss have you experienced between this year and last year? How can you demonstrate that either in your profit and loss statements over time, or again, this balance sheet, which is a thing that people are not used to using, but a balance sheet from last year and a balance sheet from this year. So you're definitely going to be asked to demonstrate loss. And that's because there are some industries who are thriving in the middle of the pandemic. It just like Zoom is a great example. Web conferencing services are doing just fine. They don't need any COVID relief. The same goes for a lot of outdoor activities. If you are, if you are selling roller skates, for example, everybody wants to roller skate now. And so you're sold out of roller skates and you're doing absolutely fine. You're still living in the middle of a pandemic and all of the emotional and stress that comes with that, but financially your sales are not down. So something to think about. And Harriet, let me let you answer that from a general grants perspective.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And I think what it comes down to is just whatever the funder is looking for, that's what you're trying to meet. So if it's this, so every funder is different, whether it's the city or a government entity or a private entity, they're all going to have different things that they're looking for. And so the question is really just about understanding that and then making sure that you meet that. So as Dixie was saying, for, if they're looking for a demonstrated loss of revenue so that you can be reimbursed for that loss of revenue, if you don't have that, then you're not applicable for that grant. And I see, Mia, your question about private foundations. Every private foundation is different. Every funder is different. So there's kind of not really a blanket statement of like, what are they looking for? Generally, private foundations are more mission driven. So there's going to be more kind of like social good questions, which is why they're often more focused on nonprofits and not so much on businesses. But if private foundations are looking to support businesses, they're still going to want to understand kind of like, what are you doing in the community that helps? And how is them helping you? So like a private foundation is going to have a mission or a goal that they're trying to accomplish, whether it's like end childhood hunger or, end childhood hunger in Austin or whatever the case may be. So they're going to want to look for mission alignment of like, how does whatever your business how does what you do help them? I'm getting into grammar weeds here, but how does what you do help them achieve their goals? So if their goal is end childhood hunger, how does your business help them achieve that goal? And if your business does help them achieve that goal, then they'll be interested in giving you money. Sure thing.
Good. I'm glad that answered those questions. And so we knew when we decided to do this meeting, this webinar, that I don't know why I don't like that word, but this webinar that we were going to be kind of sitting in this weird place. And it's because we are like, we're sitting in this strange place. We're living through a pandemic. We've got this crazy economic crisis that's just kind of ongoing. We're going into the holiday shopping season. Like, we have all of these things that are happening. And if you're kind of sitting here and you're like, okay, I have no idea how to do this, like, that's okay. Nobody has any idea how to do this. No one that you're interacting with has ever created a grant program for an economic crisis stemming from a global pandemic. Nobody, like, your other applicants have never lived through this. Like, no one has ever done it. So we're all in the same boat. I saw a meme yesterday that spoke to me that said, at the end of the day, we're all just walking each other home. So that's what we're doing. Like, at the end of the day, we're all here together. We're all trying to figure it out. That goes for kind of both sides of the aisle here. The people who have the money, who are trying to do the most good in the world with the amount of money they have to spend, and the people who are out trying to make a living and continue to keep the local economy, this amazing local economy that Austin has, to keep that going. We're all in the same boat. So we have, we're going to end about 5 minutes early. So everybody gets 5 minutes of their life back. You can go do your 5-minute yoga routine, or I don't know what you do when you have a free 5 minutes. I'm going to go prune this plant because I see that it's turned yellow behind me. Thank you, Mercedes. It was good to see you again. I'm glad you could come. What I'm going to do is we always share the information. So I know we didn't do a lot of networking here and talking to each other, but I'm going to share everyone's email address with the group. So if somebody asked a question today and you thought, oh, that's interesting, I would like to know what that person is doing, or why are you thinking about that? Or, you know, you're also a woman in STEM, a CEO of a STEM company, and you want to make that connection there with Yulia. So I'll go ahead and share that. I'm going to share the links to the information that Harriet provided. And I'll go ahead and share the link to the rent relief draft. Make sure you know that it is a draft, the draft program for rent relief that we're thinking the city is going to use the SAVES funds for. Get confused with all the acronyms. So look for that this afternoon to come to you. And I appreciate everyone taking the time to come. Harriet, I'm so grateful for the organization that you're running and that you exist, and then for that help that you're providing, and for your willingness to kind of quickly pivot from you can come in and look at it to I can look at it for you and I can help you. So the local business community thanks you. Thanks for doing that. We definitely need all the help that we can get right now, and that's a huge one.
No, happy to help. Yeah, please feel free to reach out, everybody, if you have further questions. And yeah, looking forward to helping out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to close down Shop Local. Well, let me say one more thing. I see we have a lot of members on here. So we always do a Shop Local for the holidays promotion. We're doing it even bigger and badder than we usually do. We are also adding on Small Business Saturday. So if you have something that you're doing for Small Business Saturday, if you have a sale that you're running, or you're having a sidewalk situation, or you're just being your normal awesome self and you want to say, hey, don't forget about me on Small Business Saturday, send it to me. My email address is Dixie@AIBA or hello@AIBA, and let me include it in there. So for Small Business Saturday, that's the 28th, it's the day after Black Friday. We have a campaign that we're going to run that week to encourage people, to remind them that Amazon does not need their money and small local businesses do need their money. So much is riding, especially for our small retailers and service industry people, so much is riding on these next 2 months. We're going to do Small Business Saturday. We're also going to do a live event where we run through all of the things that are happening on Small Business Saturday, so we can connect with people that way. And then we're going to do Shop Local for the holidays in a similar way, but like kind of bigger. So we're looking at all the different ways that we can get coverage. So this is, if you have, what did I just get? Somebody who has the new CBD bath bombs that they're selling. Like, that's what we're going to be talking about. If you have a service company and you sell gift cards, it's an amazing time. People are loving to buy gift cards. It's a way that we can dream about the future. We can do the things that we used to do, but that we can spend the money right now so that we can help to fill those coffers. That's a good question, Sonia. Why don't we connect offline? I haven't thought about doing music in the live event that I have planned. But if you want to connect offline, let's do that. So anyway, all of those things, if you can imagine what you do and you can spin it to have anything to do with shopping locally on a Saturday or buying local during the month of December, hit me up so I can help you promote it. We're also looking at some press coverage, so I would love to include as many people as we can on that. Okay, I'll stop talking about that. Thank you everyone for coming. And the number one thing you can do is you can also shop local. So do that every chance you get. Okay, y'all have a great day. Bye everyone.